I'm going to cash out some of the particular themes that came out from this story that will echo through this course. And the first and most obvious one is the brain isn't just a big bunch of mush, right? It has structure. It has organization. The different bits do different things, okay? Importantly, when Bob had this big lime in his head, he didn't just get a little bit stupid. No, his IQ, if he'd taken an IQ test, would be unchanged. He lost a very specific mental ability, okay? And that is fascinating, but it's also good news for science, because often when you try to understand a complicated thing, a great way to make progress is to first figure out what the parts are, and then later try to figure out how does each individual part work and how do they work together. But if there's part structure, there's at least a place to start. Okay. The second theme is that some parts of the brain do extremely specific things, right? Not all of them. Some of them are quite general and are engaged in lots of different mental processes, but some are remarkably specific. We'll talk a lot about that. Third big theme, the organization of the brain echoes the architecture of the mind. And I would say the fundamental pieces of the brain are telling us what are fundamental parts of the mind. And that's why I'm in this field. That's what I think is cool. You know, the brain is just like a bunch of cells. Like, it's a physical thing. Who cares about a physical thing? The reason we care about it is that's where our mind lives. And if we study that physical thing, we can learn something about our minds. And that's pretty cosmic, I think. So the point of all of this kind of work is not to say, oh, that mental process is here, not there. Who cares? I don't really care. I mean, at some point you need to have a ballpark sense. You need to know to study the things. But the interesting question is not where these things are in the brain, but which mental processes have their own specialized machinery, and why those? Another important theme, how do brains change, right? Bob didn't recover after his brain damage in that very particular mental function that he lost. If all of that had happened when he was 5 years old, he probably would have, right? So how do brains change over normal development? How do they change from learning and experience? How do they change after injury? And the final theme echoed in that story is there are lots and lots of different ways to study the brain, right? There are the simple behavioral observations. Bob can't navigate, but he can do everything else. Okay, that's really deep and informative. Low tech, but really powerful, right? The anatomical brain images that showed where the lime was in Bob's brain, right? That gives you another kind of information, what's the physical structure of the brain. The functional images that we had done in my lab to discover the parahippocampal place area. And the studies of what mental abilities are preserved and which are lost in people who have alterations of their brain. Okay, so those are just a few of the kinds of methods in our field, each of which tells us about a different kind of thing about the brain. Okay, so those are the themes I was trying to get at here.